tonight as the final round of the regular season kicks off here in Dunedin. Triple bite is going to go in again. They finish top of the table.
Oh, referee James Diamond, he's missed the knock-on from Sevu Reece, but they deliver.
And it's the Crusaders who will finish second. Anderson has to go back for it. Anderson for 3 inside 22. Lockie's got a honey.
Now here's Rico Ioane heading off after another one. Can he get it down? Yes! Hat-trick! And now the Blues have really thrown down the challenge to Moana Pasifika.
Still going. What a brilliant try by Peter Umaga-Jensen.
And this is what they can do to you, the Hurricanes.
They've got over the top of Moana Pasifika, whose season is now over.
Tēnā koutou katoa, good evening, welcome into the breakdown. Our playoff 6 has been found and the Blues have snuck in there, just the defending champions. It's a very good evening to you and Jeff Wilson, Stephen Donald and Mills Muliaina. Guys, humble brag, if we rewind the clock, 17 weeks, because that's how long we've been on air on the breakdown, that's nearly as many rounds as been in Super Rugby. We picked our top 6 and Mills, you got it bang on.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, did I?
You reminded
Did
us.
I? Did I?
Well, how do we get this footage?
You screenshotted this and sent it into us. You screenshotted it and sent it in.
Jeepers, man, I looked very confident there too, didn't we?
Well
That's
done.
impressive, Mills,
Well done.
that you picked the final 6 in no particular order. Jeff, I won't go into
No,
factors.
whoa. I'm going to defend because I said, the audio on that show, I said, look, clearly I think the Hurricanes are a team that are going to be right there. But I stuck true to my team, my side, the Highlanders. That's why I had them sitting in the
That's
six.
why you had them covered there as well, mate. So
No, we're the Landers. You see at the bottom? Not just Highlanders, Landers. It's a wee catchphase.
And look, I
well done, Mills.
sitting
Well
there
done.
in top, so
You're a
I won
genius.
as
You're
well.
a genius.
hey, I won't say, I'm not one to brag, but hey,
Season's not over.
nice. That's nice.
And good to have you on the show, Beef.
Yeah, great to be here. I wasn't invited for that one, but great to be here for this one.
Here is what's coming up on the breakdown tonight.
Super Rugby's top 6 is confirmed, but who wins and why? The Highlanders and Moana are out. We review their seasons. Who are the must-haves for the All Blacks? And could league superstar Nathan Cleary switch to rugby and play for the Wallabies?
Ooh, some juicy rumours going around the rugby union circle right now, but it is time for Pick and Go. Pick your topic and give it to us, Mills.
My pick and go this week is the Crusaders versus the Brumbies game. Now, there was a knock-on there. A few people a bit outraged with it. The referee didn't pick it up, but the TMO did. Here's what Morgan Tiranui had to say.
Got it completely wrong, James Dolman, about it coming off the foot. But his assistant referee has a clear view and has to step in and fix an absolute gaffe that quite simply cost the Brumbies the game, cost the Brumbies a home semi-final, and completely changes the makeup of this competition.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's exactly right? So, it's been such a fantastic tournament so far. It's been really close, it's been competitive, but to keep the focus on rugby and also the players, the referees and the TMOs have got to get it absolutely crystal clear leading into the playoffs and how they review these things and who picks it up. And the process towards this isn't an isolated incident. We've had referees look at the big screen and pull back things because someone stepped out. There's been knock-ons being pulled back. In this instance, nothing happened.
And there's 4 referees out there, so you're saying they shouldn't be missing things like these?
Well, I don't think we actually really know what the process is. What can they go up for? Can they only go up for foul play? Can they go... this here, it's rolled on for a wee while. Surely you would have thought they would have gone up, and Coleman said, he said come out for foot, right? Surely that's the time to go, hey, just have a little wee check.
I think that's where it put Richard Kelly in a difficult position because the referee had judged on what he'd seen. So all of a sudden...
They don't look at it, right?
Well, no, they don't look at it. And Super Rugby went down this process of trying to let the game flow, to not have the TMO come in for everything. So we've seen in the last couple of weeks when games have been more significant. If this has happened in round 3, which it probably did, we don't think too much about it because there's a rest of the season to play out. There's not that now. And for Morgan Tiranui, he knows that the Brumbies' best chance in this competition was to be at home next week, to not just maybe have a quarterfinal, but to have, the round of 6, but to have a semi-final at home if they manage to win. So that's why he was so emotive, because he knows now it's really difficult for the Brumbies. And he's desperate to have an Australian team in the playoffs. But in terms of the process, I agree with you. We need to be really clear that if it's something that's clear and obvious, Beaver, I think they should come in straight away if they see it, so we don't get a situation where a game is decided by something the fan at home could see.
Yeah, well, they're either all in on it and almost refereeing the game from up in the grandstand, or they're not, because we were all at North Harbour the other week when we sat there and listened to a referee and touch goes, what's the process here? What's the protocol here? And we're looking at a big screen for 10 minutes. So you're either coming in for knock-ons and stuff that you're going to have human error on, or you're just backing out and letting tries be scored.
No, but they back out there, and they backed out, and they said nothing, and they get criticised. With me, I think there's a little bit of common sense here. There are aspects of the game you can let play on, but when there's a clear and obvious sideline, knock-on, out in the open, you know, sometimes at the back of the ruck or the maul, it bobbles around a little bit. Sometimes you need to play that on.
And I guess that's what I'm saying. You've got to be transparent in how you go to the TMO. At the moment, we're hearing, they can only come in for foul play. They can only come in for this. They can't come back longer than 3 phases. Everyone's confused about what the process and the protocol actually is. And that time that you're talking about, it's up the referee to see on screen.
Yeah, what's the protocol?
Are we within protocol?
We still don't know what the protocol is. That's the problem.
So the focus, I just don't want the focus in the finals to be on refereeing decisions. I mean, it's been a fantastic season so far.
I think it's hard not to when you start getting down to the business end of the season. When you start getting to this point where the margins are smaller, the players are 100% pushing the boundaries more and more because they don't want to concede tries. You'll start to concede penalties before you concede tries. Have you seen how there's been a reduction in yellow cards? I think the referees have been a little bit more lenient and the players have started to adapt a little bit. So I think at the moment, it gets harder when the season's on the line.
But just because the focus may become on referees, it doesn't mean there's not inaccuracies, right?
Oh, look, there's human error involved in rugby union. We know how difficult it is in regards to a breakdown, the collision, players on the ground, clean out, all of those things. I think when you start talking about a fundamental of the game, players standing on the line or a clear knock on an open play, which everyone in the world can see, those are the moments you go, you know what? Bang, just come in quick in the air, stop the game, it's a knock on, go back.
OK, you come in now for us, Jeff. What is your pick and go?
Well, the Chiefs need to win the competition this season because it's going to get significantly harder for them going forward, because I'm going to remind you that their head coach is heading away after this year, and I think he's been the difference for this organisation. You think where Warren Gatland had this team, they were struggling just after COVID, they needed a shift. He came in when Warren Gatland went to the Lions, and then they've been better and better for that ever since. This is a team that's competed for titles, but what I do know, you get the sense that he knows how to drive players and get the best out of them. The fact that there's a respect there, he pushes them hard. You see that face, you know what's expected, right? The fact that he seems to be the right guy, I think it's a huge loss for New Zealand rugby. Now, there's an opportunity overseas, and there's nowhere for him to go right now.
In New Zealand?
There probably wasn't anywhere for him to go. What I'm saying is it's going to be harder from the Chiefs from here on, because he, to me, is a world-class coach, and now the players who are in his environment won't get the betterment of his expertise. I'm going to miss his after-match interviews as well. Because you always get quality from Clayton every single week, win or lose.
Beef, can't anyone coach this group of players they've got down in Chiefs country?
They're a good group, but Clayton's done a great job, but I think he's also set them up quite nicely too.
Yeah, and transition's nice, right?
Transition's nice, and I don't know if it's been announced, but there's a guy in the building who's coached at the highest level in the Northern Hemisphere, and Jono Gibbs, who is, when you look at that face of Clayton's, he's a like for like.
Oh, he's got that face?
He's got that face. He's a like for like, so I think if it's Jono, for example, it's a pretty easy transition. But who knows?
You said, I don't know if it's been announced yet. You've basically announced it.
No, I don't know if it's.
I think that has always been the intention for him to come in. But I still don't think he's had the benefit of what Clayton's gone through and where he's got to, and what you see out of these players. Head coaching is a difficult proposition, in any level, particularly at the professional level. When you're talking about the expectations are you should win. That's what it comes with. That's attached to that, Mills, isn't it? The fact that once you get inside a professional organisation where you're talking about millions and millions of dollars, it's time to perform and deliver. And he's tried, and I think going to get very, very close to getting that title that the Chiefs crave.
He's also, I mean, he's brought through quite a consistent team as well. If you think in the last 3 years, I mean, and the other side of that too, there's been a lot of hurt. You know, 2 failed finals, so. I mean, in that group of guys, they've made semi-finals in that as well, quarters too. So he's got a good group. They're still relatively pretty young, but the transition out of it and sort of leading to someone else, whether it's Jono or whoever it may be, I think it's a contingency plan.
Maybe it's Beaver. Who knows? Give us your pick and go.
They might have really been listening to the breakdown the last few months. No, my pick and go is just a massive tick to whoever came up for the top 6. I know for a long time we've sort of moaned about the fact we've got this top 8 and that means half the competition, and I know there's been some weak quarterfinals, but now I don't think we've probably got as a compelling weekend to look forward to since, you know, the top 4 days in Super 12 and then Super 14. So I just think they've got it nailed as far as top 6. Yep, you could argue that there's still, you need a, I don't know, a physics degree to work out what happens if you're a loser and then you're not the top qualifier. And I know there's a few complications, but as far as the top 6 and compelling games coming into this weekend, can't wait. So I think it's a massive tick for the competition.
I tend to agree, absolutely. The fact, the competitiveness we've had this year has meant to the fact that, yeah, I think we've got the right top 6 at the end. The Blues took a while to get there, but now when you look at what's going to happen over the next 3 weeks, and you're going to get a worthy champion. And ultimately, I think that's what any competition is looking at. You don't get that game you might not necessarily need.
Yeah.
Well, I think the top 6 teams in this, Mills, they deserve the opportunity to win. It's harder, clearly, for some, but that's the way it's supposed to be. I like where we've ended up. Ask me that in 3 weeks and see what we've got, because there's a possibility and there's a chance if the Blues do the unthinkable, if you're a Chiefs fan, and beat the #1 seed, that we could end up with the 4 New Zealand teams in the semi-finals. That's not a success if you're coming in and looking at it from a bigger picture.
Right, but I also think, I mean, there could end up a Blues-Chiefs final. You know, because the Chiefs, theoretically, if they lose against the Blues, they'll pick up that sort of the best sort of loser spot. So it's a fantastic way to finish off the season, and it came down to the last game. Everyone, there was something on it the whole time. Perfect.
Okay, well, before we get into the playoff picture and a few previews, let's look back at the top 5 playoff matches.
Spencer on to Muliaina, trying to fend his man off, has done so. Muliaina! Brilliant try by Muliaina. And the Blues, they'll be back here next week to take on the defending champions, the Crusaders.
The side of his boot, Payne against Berryman. There it goes! Roman Berryman. This will be the opening try. What an unbelievable game at Lancaster Park. Release now for Kelleher. Brown starting to call the shots. Alatini slipped a beautiful pass. Romy Ropati. This will be a super try when he finally scores it, which he'll do right now. Romy Ropati. Moreland for Donald. Looks for a gap. Almost got away, but Vito held in there. Now Sivivatu away to Clark. Lewaki wide again. Lewaki on Soliano. Lewaki's got to score, and he does. And that's it. The Chiefs into the final. Now Curballo sees a gap, and off he goes. Chased down, and he's lost the ball in the tackle of his opposite number. So now the Hurricanes on the counter-attack, and Barrett drops the little kick in behind and picks it up. Now, can he link up Bowden Barrett? He's got a fair bit of pace. Goes off there. Hurricanes are into the final with home advantage.
How quick was Bowden Barrett? If those memories are anything to go by, we've got a sensational 3 weeks in store for you with the Super Rugby Pacific final series. This is what the quarterfinals looks like. The Blues taking on the Chiefs in Hamilton this weekend. The Crusaders against the Reds in Christchurch, and the Brumbies host the Hurricanes in Canberra. So, B, last week you said to us that the path is clear. It's the Chiefs beat the Blues in the quarters or qualifying finals. They beat the Hurricanes in the semis and the Crusaders in the grand final. Are you a genius or what?
Look, ask me in 3 weeks. I was having to be at Eden Park yesterday, and all of a sudden, look, their path's got a bit rockier. It must be said the Blues' big names were all unbelievable. So we talked about, I just talked about how great this top 6 is. That is a blockbuster quarterfinal or qualifying final. And the Blues, for me, are all of a sudden the real real bogey card in all of this.
We have some graphics. Our statisticians have been crunching the numbers, and the final has never been won by a team that finished 5th or 6th. So the winners have only come from 1st, 2nd, 3rd or 4th. Majority of the time, 1st and 2nd. So how much of a threat can the Blues actually be in this playoff run?
They're a big threat. They're a big threat because the whole season has been clunky until now, right? Until you get to the finals. Their season has been real clunky in terms of what now they're bringing a bit of confidence. They're bringing a bit of heat. They know, their back's against the wall once again. So they've sort of gone through all that. And you said, their big-time players now stepped up.
It's worked out perfectly in some ways in terms of their squad. The fact they've come back and they're healthy. They look sharp. Caleb Clark, you talked about their big names, look really, really good. Mark Talia comes back after his suspension. Their forward pack, obviously without Ofa Tuangafasi, but ultimately, the big names, they are there. Finlay Christie starting to show some nice form at halfback, Beauden Barrett. Yeah, this has suddenly got awkward for the Chiefs because the other side of it too is if you think about the Blues, they had a bye, then the Waratahs. Yes. And that wasn't much of a game on the weekend. They're actually feeling pretty sharp. Yeah. If you think about what the Chiefs have had to go through and how hard they've had to work every single week to get to the point they are now. And so they know that. And the other thing too is they've got a life. But they're beat up for that very reason, just cumulative effects over a course of a long season. Now, the one thing they have done well is rotate their players.
I agree, yeah.
But I still look at this and go, when you haven't got a life, there's a desperation, right? They've got a life. Regardless, they will have a semi-final at home. Even if they lose, they'll have a semi-final at home. They can only finish in that second spot. So for me, I look at it and go, the Blues have nothing to lose. They go out there and they do what they've done before. They won a title. What happened in the rest of the season doesn't matter anymore. It's gone.
Are they still going to play like we saw them playing on the weekend? We saw them playing with freedom. Their backs were touching the ball and scoring tries. Are we going to see that?
No, because the Waratahs' defence was poor at Mills. I mean, they're going to have to play differently against the Chiefs at home because the Chiefs have been so dangerous. But last night they found a way to unlock some space in behind. I just think the way that they've gone about this season's been really fragmented. Injuries, they haven't managed to connect in terms of the way that they wanted to play. This was a good sign. I don't expect them to play this way against the Chiefs, though. I think they'd love to see a little bit of rain. I'd like to see a little bit of discomfort. I think they'll be right on the advantage line, and they'll use their defence as their biggest weapon.
So can the Blues win the title in 2025?
Of course they can, after last night. But I don't know if they need rain. I think they won't mind because they don't want it to be open and just sort of how to skelter, because that's when Mackenzie and Stevenson and Cortez Latimer really take over. But if they can unlock those boys like they did last night, AJ Lamb last night, getting them across the advantage line, banging people midfield, Rico was outstanding as well, and all those other big names. For me, if their pack needs to be able to hold them, Goldie, and that's the big one. That's where the Chiefs, I think, will come at them.
That's what it's going to come down to. It's the pack. Look at where sort of the Blues got themselves and got those guys a little bit more freedom out wide because they're getting a bit of momentum. They weren't as one-dimensional as what they've been in throughout the sort of season. But the Chiefs also, they've steeled up their pack too. I like their line-out. I like the way their scrum's gone about. I mean, Dyer, Player of the Year. I mean, those are the sort of the guys who've sort of been there for a while. The one downside is, they are a bit banged up in the midfield.
Yeah, so what happens with the midfield? Quinn Tupai, you were down in Dunedin, had a cut to the eye. It seemed to take a length of time to get him off the field, but is it not as bad as first feared? And is Anton Leonard-Brown also just around the corner?
Yeah, well, can you tell us, is Anton available?
Oh, I don't know if it's this week.
Oh, because you've got all the oil. I mean, we heard about the coach and he's... I mean,
that was a few weeks ago now that he did his shoulder.
He's in the chamber. He's in the chamber. I think there's something.
Is there a danger, though, if he's not quite ready? You don't want to rush him back, but you've got the benefit of some time. You've got another game. Quinn Tupai, look, I know he was a little bit frustrated about how long the process went through, but of course they were looking after his well-being. That's why it took so long. It took an eternity, but he was standing up at half-time. That's what Clayton McMillan told us. Obviously it was a decent hit across the eye. I'll be interested to know whether there was, they wear the smart mouth guards, whether there was, they go and look at that and go, you know what, we need to make sure that the protocols are in place here. We'll hear more from them, I'm sure, but I just think overall that's an area in the midfield where they've been so very, very good.
And they did lose their way a bit there because you've seen the makeup of the bench. They didn't really carry another midfielder, and I think Rempling was injured as well. And that's where they lost their way a little bit. Jacob came on. He's pretty good, but they struggled to get a little bit of a sort of go forward until they went back into the half-time, had a really good chat, and then they just blitzed again. That's what impressed me about the Chiefs, their ability to adapt after sort of a little bit of a sluggish sort of slot in the middle of the game.
You talked about rotation, that Clayton McMillan has been rotating his squad really nicely over the 14 games. There will be no rotation from here on out. He was clear about that. So do all the All Blacks start? Does Sammy Penny-Finau start at 6? Does Cortez start over Xavier Rowe? Where do you see some of these positions? Samisoni Tokiaho, another that has spent so much time coming off the bench.
Yeah, yes, to all three.
They all start. Their All Blacks are all out there for as long as possible.
For me, they would. Yep, absolutely. Cortez Alatama last couple of weeks has been absolutely outstanding. Xavier's done a great job off the bench, but Cortez is that combination with McKenzie and Stevenson as well. Mills, they all get involved in and around Cortez. I think he'll definitely start.
And Sammy Penny, man, he's been pretty quiet until the weekend. I reckon they've done that really well. You feel for guys. I mean, I asked Clayton at the end of the game, and he said the best player will play. And Simon Parker has been really good for them as well. So, but man, the way Sammy Penny sort of has come on, particularly against the Highlanders, he was very good. Well,
here is a stat for you: 29-0. The Crusaders have never ever lost a playoff match at home. If all things go well over the next 2 weeks, they will have a playoff this weekend and a semi-final as well. Your second favourite team, it must be said, Jeff. So, do you basically put them in the final right now?
No, I don't think so. I know
it's an impossible place to go and win.
Yeah, I think this could depend on whether Will Jordan's back, because they were lucky in Canberra. I thought the Brumbies were really, really good. They're a good side. I think they've shown some vulnerabilities. The Highlanders put them under all sorts of pressure in Christchurch just 2 weeks ago. So I think for me, they're not a team that's won all of those titles. They're not the same sort of side. This isn't a team that's going to go out there and blow teams off the park. Reds are a good team. They're a competitive side. Do I expect them to go and win? Probably not. But I don't think you just write this in the books and say they're going to be there, they're going to find their way through.
But it's a huge advantage being in Christchurch for the first 2 weeks if they make it through.
Massively, and that's why Morgan Turanui was so fired up about that decision, because it makes it really difficult for anybody who has to go there and play.
What about the Brumbies Hurricanes? How interesting is this matchup in Canberra? Christchurch is never an easy place, nor is Canberra. But that result, the Hurricanes got the result over the Brumbies earlier in the year. I think it was Ruben Love's second match at 10, and that really has propelled their season.
Yeah, the Hurricanes, for me, obviously the Chiefs are in a good run of form. Blues really came into life yesterday, but the Hurricanes are in a real sweet spot at the moment. The way they're playing, Mills, their game's really flowing. Their defence, I think, really went up a level last night against Moana Pasifika, allowed them to get sets and really bring some line speed. So, for me, as good as the Brumbies were against the Crusaders, and they were good, I like the Hurricanes' chances here.
They don't get any respect from Beef, do they, these Brumbies?
They do, but the Hurricanes are on fire at the moment.
It's a tough place to win.
So who starts at 10 for them? Is Cameron or Love?
Jeez, what's Harkin's situation?
Oh, he was available.
He's available?
I think he was available.
I think Cameron starts. So Cameron was good. I think if you look across those teams we've just spoken about, all their players are starting to come back. You know, they're starting to come back into Cameron was out for a very long time. You've got to remember, the Hurricanes had a lot of injuries there. Now they're a little bit settled. So when they start to get settled, Umanga Jensen was fantastic. Yeah. And then Billy Proctor as well. So they're starting to really sort of get some, solidify their midfield, but also some hard edge about their forwards. I give them a chance to go to Canberra and win. The other side of it too, if everything goes well, say the Chiefs win and also the Crusaders, that's why that fourth place was so key, because if they do lose, this is the Hurricanes to the Brumbies, they'll pick up that other spot and they'll get another life.
Yeah, I think they're a real shot, the Hurricanes. I really, really do. I love the way that they're playing. You know, I just think that technically they've started to get things right. They're getting some remarkable performances from individually. When they keep the ball alive, they've just got to play that way. Whether or not the Brumbies will allow them to play that way, I'm not sure. Like I say, this is an organisation that knows how to win in a quarterfinal. Not sure they know how to win a semi-final and final, but the Brumbies, yet they have to be respected.
Well, it's great news for 6 sides. It is season over for the other 5. We review the Highlanders and Moana Pasifika's season next. But first, Bunnings Rugby Assist is back. Yes, you heard that right. Grassroots clubs can now apply to win a share of $300,000 worth of Bunnings products and materials so that you can upgrade your club facilities. Nominate your club today by scanning the QR code on your screen right now. the Highlanders, 7 losses by 7 points or less. They ended up finishing last on the ladder, so 11th out of 11 teams with just 3 wins from 14. Jeff, you've kept a close eye on the side all season. How do you sum up? How do you assess and rate this season under Jamie Joseph?
Look, it's been disappointing and frustrating, I'm sure, and it's been a season of missed opportunities. Right from the very first game against the Waratahs, where they'd done more than enough to win, and they started the season so strongly. And I think they came in knowing they needed to do that. That obviously worked really hard in the off-season. And if you're going to pick up wins against teams, it's when you're playing sides that have got internationals, have had a bit of a longer break. So they did that really nicely, but there was a couple of games there that it was in the balance. When you get 7 losing bonus points, it tells you you're in the fight. We've seen in the last 3 weeks been right there. Even on the weekend against the Chiefs, they probably should have scored with 3 minutes to go and it would have been a 1-score game. You know, unbelievable piece of defence stopped some scoring there. So this is a difficult situation. Made some critical signings over the last week or so, some talented players. But you, unfortunately for them, they're in a situation that you live or die in this competition by your decision makers and your pivots at 9 and 10. Yeah. And they were inconsistent in terms of their selection and performance at 9, sort of went a lot of different directions. And Tane Robertson and Cam Miller, they're the 2 guys, this side will only go as far as they can take them. How much improvement they can get out of this season, how much better they can get. Or they bring someone in. I don't think there's someone who's sitting out there who's at a level that you go, you know what, they'll make a significant difference. So for me, it's around, they'll look back and go, we worked hard, we tried hard, we were right there in a lot of critical games, but we need to find a way to win those big moments which decide whether you are close to the playoffs, which they could have been, or they're last.
Yeah, I mean, you did obviously the 7 points. It reads it like a book, but it's things like, I mean, the Hurricanes was a missed line out when they were in front, missed goal kicks here, and you're right about the 9 and 10 situation. I mean, one of the finds I thought was Nathan Hasty, and he sort of just disappeared after sort of 6 or 7 rounds. I thought he was really coming. Obviously, guys like Wivy in that, Talair in the midfield, they obviously, Tamatavanawa just absolutely exploded. Tangitau again before he got injured. So there's plenty of guys there if they are to carry on. I mean, at the start of the year, probably apart from Goldie's graphic at the start of the show, not many had them in the top 6. But, you know, they were in, as talked about, the last 3 weeks could have been different. They could have been slipping into about 6 million.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about their side, right? You look at the front row, you know, you get the group, Taylor and that sort of coming through the middle, Holland. There's a lot there. And then the Lucies, they're really starting to connect out wide. You talk about some of those guys, but I put it down to that. The continuity between 9 and 10, you know, they sort of rotated a little bit, didn't quite get that right. And they're not a bottom place team, but it just goes to show the testament of the tournament, right? I mean, to lose by 7 points, you know, those sort of games, but also it then became a habit, didn't it? It became a habit to lose those games in a tight situations. They're a young group. Now's the time to actually try and, you know, really get a solid base behind the 9 and 10, the drivers, because I think that's where they're lacking at the moment.
If there's one thing I would do, I would ring Stephen Petafeta's agent. That's the one thing I would do. I'm sure he's contracted to the Blues, but at the moment he's in the wilderness for them because he's fit and available and they've gone on every other direction other than him. Now, I know that the Blues won't like to hear that, but if I'm in a situation of like the Highlanders where you're going, is there someone out there? Here's a guy who has the ability, has led teams at 10 and 15. Is he a guy that you could bring into your environment, get some confidence back into and put in and slot him in the 10 jersey? Or given the fact that Jacob Ratamatavuki-Neekins had such a great season, gives you some cover at fullback because they'll need that now. So just for me, I look at it and go, if there's someone out there, maybe it's a recruit.
There were some shining lights. You talk about Jacob Ratamatavuki-Neekins. His return has been awesome. Tavatavanawa, another shining light. They beat the defending champion, the Blues, remember, for the first time in such a long time.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Look, I'm not down on the season by any shape of the imagination because the people that we've secured for next year are the ones that will make us dangerous. Yeah. Tavatavanawa, Tangatau. You know that you've got the Vivela Sanga. Yeah. I think had a great year at open side. So I think for me, that the bones of a squad is well and truly there.
Yeah, it's there.
But you have to have a pivot, and it's up to Tane or Cam. They've just got to take the step up. That's not easy in Super Rugby.
Well, for the last few weeks, Moana Pasifika have been right in the playoff hunt as well. It wasn't to be over the weekend. Let's hear from their head coach, Whaalongo Tana Umanga.
We're a movement. You know, we've brought something to this competition that I don't think many believed we could. We brought all our people together. You know, listen to this crowd. Our people have come out. You know, everyone's come out. Hurricanes fans, it's great to see them out here. And we know that it's the people that count. you know, our fans, our families. That's what we play for. You know, 3 weeks in a row we've played at the most people in a stadium at home, down to the Chiefs, and now here. Sorry, the coach and me, but I don't want to lose so much, you know, by so much. But that's a lesson for our young guys too, you know, like once you get to this stage, the levels go up, and we saw last week against the Chiefs, we saw the Hurricanes. You know, we tried our hearts out. We just ran out of petrol at the end.
Honestly, you said that not many at the start of the year would have put the Highlanders in the top 6. I don't know if anyone would have put Moana Pasifika in playoff contention for as long as they have been in this competition. They ended up finishing 7th on the ladder, 7 wins from 14. So they won half of all their matches, same number of wins as the Blues. And yes, they haven't made the playoff, Mills, but Tana talks about this movement, and sometimes winning just isn't happening on the field.
I know. I mean, if you look at them, and you've harped on it a bit, you know, they were innovators, right? The walkout and what they did, the bringing the community together, not just Pasifika sort of fans, but also they connected to the South African had Bryce out in North Harbour Stadium, but they brought everyone with them, you know, to the stage where everyone started to just jump on this Moana wagon, and they were fantastic. And so now for them, I mean, Tana mentioned it, they were tired. You know, they didn't have much rotation. If you look at the likes of Whailangi and Tupote Loa, and you know, they weren't able to sort of really rotate those guys around. Played big minutes. Savage, Tom Savage. I mean, and so they were playing on sort of hunger and sort of desire. It got them in the end, didn't it, B?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. So much positivity around that. I mean, 7 from 4. It's phenomenal effort. And I just look at some of the guys from a rugby point of view. Some of the guys who took their game to sort of, from being always in and around the NPC and sort of bit part squad members, I think of Tamotini and Havili at 15. Obviously, Pellegrini was a revelation there for a long time. So I just think, and obviously the loose forwards that Millsy mentioned and the bashing that their bodies took over all those rounds. It was a phenomenal season when you think about it. And I think when they look back at it, in the early rounds, there was just fluctuations in their set piece a bit. Yeah. We were all at the Pukekohe game, and once they got their line out and their scrum sorted, then they scored 40 points against the Chiefs in one half, you know. Yeah. So I think they'll probably look back in the early rounds and think those might have been some missed opportunities where they would be well and truly in the 6.
I think timing was a little bit right for this group, though. Before even Artie was coming, the majority of these guys had had a couple of seasons now of Super Rugby, so they were getting up to speed for exactly what it took to be competitive. They'd improved on those couple of seasons, but I think then Artie inspired them to go to the next level. So ultimately the challenge for them is now, I'm assuming that Artie is still going to head away next Super Rugby season, so he's not going to be there. So you can't replace this. No. Because this was special. In fact, this is one of the best seasons you will see in Super Rugby ever from an individual player. Some of the things he was doing with it, didn't matter the number that was on his back, whether it was kicking a ball, running with it, work at the defensive breakdown, you name it, he did it for this side. You take all of that away now, you can't replace that. So individuals will have to take pieces of this puzzle and they'll have to replace it, and that's not easy. And a lot of this for me was the emotion that he had in behind it and drive that. Now it's for someone else to carry that on. That's really, really hard. So this is a challenge for this group. And I'm not sure, you know, for me, I look at this, I don't know how easy that's going to be. And I hope that they've managed to secure themselves as an organisation. The fact our understanding is that they're going to be part of Super Rugby this year. This is coming from Super Rugby themselves, that they're going to be part of the competition. So to just make sure they've got everything they need in behind that to keep this momentum going, because the fan base worked, the stadium worked, the performance worked, obviously the coaching group and the coaching team and everyone behind it worked. So if they can't continue that with the right amount of support, and I'm talking money here, because that's what it takes to run a professional rugby team, it'll get challenging.
Just quickly, you talked about the fact that a number of these players had now been in Super Rugby for 3 or 4 years. But what about the ones that we didn't know anything about? The Patrick Pellegrinis. Who was he at the start of the season? He came from nowhere. Semesi Tupo-Tailor, who was with Southland, was passed up by the Highlanders, but he comes up and they're successful here at Moana Pasifika. Yeah,
but they've been inspired by the other players around them, but the other players had taken it to another level. And like you say, Miracle Whailangi was as good as anyone at blindside.
Also, Artie going there now, does that not open it up for another All Black to possibly go there to actually play? You know?
Who else, Mills?
Well, if Artie can do it, why can't you have someone like a Anton Leonard-Brown or I don't know, anyone? I mean, you know, it just inspired guys to be able to go, well, maybe we will. I'm not sure, but that there says it does work. If you're going to see an Ardie, and you're right, Jeff, it's not, I mean, I don't think any player would replicate what Ardie's done. But can we actually get to a state where you can have two other...
You don't think any player would? Richie Mo'unga?
If you want to play like that, it's expensive. You're not getting that for free. You have to find big money to sign superstar.
And that's going to be their issue, right? Financially, right?
Yep. Oh, look, the Highlanders have the same challenges and issues in terms of trying to move talent and improve their rosters. That's one of the challenges of this competition.
Maybe a pedal
How
fitter.
do you get better?
Steal them off the Highlanders, right?
His agent needs to pick up the phone and make a few calls, do you think? Well, let's talk about the All Blacks, because it is just 5 weeks before the French hit town, all live and exclusive on Sky Sport. The squad, the 35-man squad, is being named on Monday, the 23rd of June, right here on the Breakdown Special. So that is in 3 weeks' time on the Monday at midday. We set these guys a task. Write down your 35-man All Black squad, and I tell you what, only one person did their homework. This person right here. One person did their homework.
Radio silence. Got me to do most of the work.
He went way too early.
And then they just
went way too early.
These two just copy and pasted Jeff's squad and then tinkered with it a tiny bit. But 30 or 31 of the players were exactly the same for all three of them. So 30 or 31, you'd say, basically locked in stone. But there were a couple of players and a couple of positions that you all differed. Jeff, where did you differ? Who has to make this squad for you?
Who has to make it, or is it the fact there's players clearly all of us want to see get opportunity? That's the difference. The fact that this isn't the side when I picked the 35 that I think Razor's going to pick. It's who I wanted to see, and I want to see Timothy Tavatava-Nawai get an opportunity in the environment. The fact that here's a guy who's made such a significant difference on so many levels for the Highlanders. When you listen to Jamie Joseph talk about him and what he has done down there, he's immediately made co-captain in terms of the impact he's had on this team. You talk about the inspiration that Ardie Savea has, the respect that he has earned, and then he goes out and he's a difference maker. His ability to carry the ball, his ability to offload, to stay alive on his feet. Look at this. I mean, he's pushing guys off, he's ducking under tackles, he's scoring tries, he's taking it to the line, and then guess what? He has the most turnovers in Super Rugby as well, over the ball, defensively. So for me, he's one of those guys. He's one of those players that I think I would just like to see him get a taste, because you put better players around him, what could he be capable of?
Well, that's the thing, Goldie. I mean, respectfully, we've just talked about it. His team came last. And outside of Ardie Savea's season, he would be Player of the Year by a country mile. He's the most talked about player in Super Rugby as far as performance goes. And his team...
Duplessis Kirifi too.
Oh, and but his team finished last, and yet he shone so bright the entire season. So you're right, Goldie. It would be great to see him get a crack.
And it's easy to get a free ride too when your team's going so well. When you're still performing the way that he is and leading from some of those breaks that he's making and the tackles that he's breaking, they're quality defenders.
Yeah, I've put my Highlanders head on from another one as well. When I put the two names down, I've gone Fabian Holland. But I think this is a guy that we're looking for that fourth lock. There's a lot of competition behind Patrick Tuipulotu. Obviously, Tupavai has been outstanding for the Chiefs. And then you've got Scott Barrett, the All Black captain. So for me, they're looking for that next guy. And I think this guy, Fabian Holland's been on a journey. On his way there. He's put his hand up, he's fronted up, the minutes have been high, he's good at the line out, carries hard, doesn't mind putting on a shot on people. Once again, I just think they've re-signed him for a reason. I think New Zealand Rugby may have been involved in that as well. I think he deserves, once again, get him like Darry did last year. All of a sudden you see a player grow. I think he will grow into that role.
When you talk about locks, you've gone for a different lock. A lock who has been in there before, but it's been really unlucky, Mills.
Yeah, had a lot of injuries, been really set back, and that's Josh Lord. I think, when you sort of look at guys about growth, he's already been in there, right? Talk about Holland. I agree. I think Holland, man, the future of our locking department is looking really positive. You've still got Darry that's out, but I like the way that Josh Lord has come back. His ability at line-out time to steal some quality ball. He's good around the park, and he's actually pretty physical as well. I think Josh Lord, for me, is a guy that you pick up for that fourth spot and continue that sort of growth and momentum from when he's been in the All Blacks sort of, I suppose, environment.
And when you talk about Josh Lord, obviously, he's now getting a bit of a run. Like, this is probably the most games he's put back to back. And around the park, like, he would be as big as any of our locks. I'm not quite sure if he's Holland big, but he's a big man. And around the park at the moment, he's really starting to feature in open play, like his locking mate, Tuipulotu.
I'm looking at my squad quite often now, and I want players who are a little bit resilient. And to me, he just hasn't got the body of work right now. I see the talent's still there, all the things he's good at, but ultimately for me, I'm not 100% I'm just looking at someone who's played more minutes. It seems as though he's just got that ability to stay on the park a little bit longer, and Josh just, to me, just hasn't quite done that just yet. I mean,
if he stays healthy, and that's his downside, right? He hasn't been healthy. If he does, man, there is a lot there to like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my second one also would have to be a Moana Pasifika. I mean, the wing is hard. It's a really hard position to be able to pick.
Does anyone know what happened to him last year?
Yeah,
it's the world's biggest mystery.
I know. He was just he was picked and then wasn't picked again. I like what he brings, because when I look at the other wingers that I did pick, Imoni brings unpredictability, he brings a bit of speed. He can pick and go. He's got a really nice skill set. He can kick, he can chip over the top. I like that, and I think, and he's also pretty good in the air.
I've got a question. How big's your squad? Because we had to come up with 35.
Which is what the All Blacks are picking.
I'm just trying to work out who you're not picking if you're picking a Moana Pasifika.
Hey, no. I've picked 35, mate. Don't worry. When it comes out, it'll be...
You do realise we need 8 forwards on the field.
No, I've got a 20... I win a 20-15 split.
So where does he sit? You're telling me Mark Talia, Caleb Clark...
Well, I've gone in with the fact if Mark Talia's not going to be picked because he's going to Japan, then obviously I've only gone four back threes.
In the back three?
In Love, you've got Will Jordan.
Caleb Clark.
No, I've gone Reese and also...
Narawa. So you haven't got Caleb Clark?
No, I haven't. No, and I think...
the season he had last year.
Yeah, last year, and that's the thing. And I think this is why it's important. The finals, you're going to showcase how good you really are. And you've seen Caleb Clark coming back into play. He hasn't had the season he had last year. In Moana Pasifika, I think he has. He's been injured. These next 3 weeks is going to be crucial for guys to be able to say, hey, put my hand up. And I just like what Imoni brings. You know, he brings something a little bit different to the Reeses that have kind of put in the air. So for me, Moana Pasifika.
Beef, who has to make your list?
Well, it's not just because he was very, very good last night, but Finlay Christie, for me, obviously we've got a lot of young halfbacks who are all very explosive, great defensively, but for me, I love what Finlay brings. He's different to pretty much every other halfback in the country, very experienced now, great defender, smart kicker, and also just knows how to deal with tempo. You watch him controlling rucks, and I sort of just feel in these big test matches, wouldn't it be nice to be able to lean on a Finlay Christie compared to throwing in another youngster? Because, I mean, let's remember, Cortez is coming into his second year. Obviously, Cam's been around a bit longer, but I really like what Finlay can bring to the All Black team. And to be fair, I think if the Blues are going to go deep, him and his partnership with his man outside him is going to be pretty big.
14 weeks ago, you wouldn't have said that, right? This is what I love about guys that are sort of stepping up. Who was out of form, the whole team in itself were out of form, didn't quite know sort of what the style they're playing. But you put big-time players in big moments and pressure moments, it's almost getting to that sort of stage where you're looking at test matches and guys start to step up. And, you know, Finlay now has. And I like what he sort of brings. He brings a little bit of a hard edge about him. Defensively, he's pretty sound as well. And now, again, like my point before, the more you progress to the finals, the more you're going to be on.
Wait, so did you pick him in your 35-man squad?
Yes, I did.
So you've all picked him, Jeff. Recall.
Yeah, I've picked him, but the interesting part, no different to Moana Pasifika, I don't know what happened last year because he fell out of favour. All of a sudden, after the middle of the year, he got sent back to the NPC and was playing for Tasman and was playing really, really well. So clearly they've seen something in the environment. They went in a different direction with Noah Hotham and what I've seen of Noah this year, it's not as good as it was last year in terms of his impact. So I think halfback's a really interesting philosophical discussion you must have if you start thinking to the future or the here and the now. I like the here and the now. I like winning test matches now. Finlay Christie is a great insurance option for me in terms of the position.
Loose forwards are also very interesting. It must be noted that none of you three picked Ethan Blackadder. Who have you picked that was a bit different to these guys in your loose trio? Well,
when I cut and paste Goldie's team, I thought there might be a bit of a shortage at 6. So I thought my man from down the motorway, Sammy Penny-Finau, yes, he hasn't had huge amounts of starts this year, but the last couple of weeks he's been ranging in that wide channels deliberately, of course, from the Chiefs. And then this started to come back again in the weekend. And yeah, you can say it was marginal, but people are going to be looking for him. And when you look at our loose forward mix, Goldie, I just think he offers something a little bit different to the rest of them. And if the All Blacks have a structure this year where we may play with a bit more width, Sammy Penny-Finau out on the wide channels is a prospect like nothing else we've got in this country. And so, yeah, it's a bit of an experiment. But look, Jerome Kano didn't just instantly turn into a superstar. He was a work in progress, and that's what I think Sammy Penny can be.
That's not an experiment. This is what we've seen before. I just haven't seen enough of it this season because he hasn't started and played enough minutes. Once again, Ethan Blackadder, I just haven't seen enough. I'm picking players who are out there and play minutes, who are resilient and are tough and will continue to keep playing. I'm not doubting his toughness. It's that ability to just play minutes, time and time after game. The fact that you can trust the fact they're going to be ready for next week. Injuries happen, I get that. But ultimately, Sammy Penny-Finau for me, no doubt. There's some talent there. But have I seen enough of it to go, you know what, it's going to be ready for France?
Well, Finau and Ethan Blackadder could get 4 games in a row. So watch this space and see if they impress Jeff over the next month of the competition, if they make it. Still plenty more to come on the breakdown. Could Nathan Cleary be serious about a switch from league to union? And try or no try in first 15 college rugby? You decide next. Welcome back to the breakdown on Sky Sport. Well, I tell you what, college rugby first 15 is back on Sky, and this week we have gone global over a controversial, maybe innovative try from Marlborough Boys High School. You were calling this game, Mills. Tell us how you saw this. This was cool to try.
It was really bizarre. I've never seen this ever before, and at the time I was gobsmacked. I actually thought it wasn't really in the spirit of the game, but I mean, the referee said it was a try. This was odd.
It's not a try.
It's not a try.
It's not a try. It's not a try. The law says it's not a try. So it's not a try. I've done it by accident when I've been on the right-hand side and hooked one beaver so far left that the winger could have caught it into the breeze in Dunedin, but not on purpose.
I was going to say, I'd be worried about my stats. That's a missed kick. It plummets your percentage.
Wasn't a try. One of the world's best referees, Nigel Owens, came out and said no try. The public have spoken on it as well. College rugby is back on Sky this week with a big Auckland derby. Jeff, Westlake taking on Rosmini.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. It'll be a great crowd, great atmosphere. It's as good as it gets when it comes to, for me, in terms of games I've been to here in Auckland. It's a great rivalry.
OK, well, a couple of quick hits before we go. Nathan Cleary, the big news this week, that Timmy Horan out of Australia has reignited this debate. Could Nathan Cleary be coming across from league? He's the greatest player in the game. He has done it all. Could he move to the UK and Europe to play rugby? Bev, you have long said that if there's one league player that could convert into a 10 in rugby union, it's this guy.
Yeah, I think the Highlanders are pretty keen for him after Goldies. But yeah, the reason I like him and what I think he could be is how direct he plays. He plays real direct as opposed to a lot of league halves, which I guess drift a bit across, but he plays so direct. I think he could transition, Kirst. He's got every skill needed.
Seriously? Seriously? The Highlanders, like I don't know. Like, I think it's great. Is it possible? No, I don't think it's possible. Why is he out of the Northern Hemisphere? Do we know?
His girlfriend, Mary Fowler, the top football player in Australia.
Is he going to URC? Is he going to that quality competition up in the Northern Hemisphere?
Very good grounding for him in the URC.
It would be a great place to learn his trade.
Is that how it works?
Apparently.
Well, I'll tell you what a place is to not learn your trade. That's the classic All Blacks. You've played in that before.
He's back. But I don't know what you're back at. I tell you what, that is the hardest job you will have, is organising. Have you got 35, 40 players? Well, because you'll need them, because you know how late they operate.
All I know is I've got my back three sorted right now. You both said to me off air that you're putting your hand up to play that game at Eden Park Friday night. You've both committed, and I cannot wait, and I'm grateful.
Classic All Blacks taking on the classic Pacific Islands side. You're in, Jeff?
No, I'm not in.
He is. They both told me.
No way.
They both told me.
I'm not in.
Give back to the community. Well done, boys. Appreciate it.
There you go. Massive weekend coming up. The first round of the playoffs. You do not want to miss a thing. It is all live and exclusive on Sky. We'll be back to discuss it the semi-final week next Sunday. See you then.